Before the sun rises and after the sun sets, the growers of our food are busy planting, nurturing, harvesting, working hard to feed the world. These heroes are always on call. They never give up, forever committed to doing more for people and the planet. Farmers are here for you, and we are here for farmers. Growing food has been a way of life for centuries, but the way we grow has evolved. We are leading the evolution of farming, using science to capture the data stored in soil, plants, rain, and air. Simplifying complex intelligence and turning it into actionable insights with Farm Command, our powerful digital platform. We're giving farmers an edge with our innovative suite of digital tools, precision hardware, unmatched services, and boots-on-the-ground support. Empowering farmers all over the world to make better decisions for their farm, for the community, and for the environment. Our highly trained data scientists collect and analyze soil from different areas of the field to prescribe an efficient fertilizer application. Our weather stations that our professionals install and calibrate provide the most accurate weather data tailored to farmers' fields. Our robust suite of satellite imagery provides a detailed view of crop health even before problems arise. Brand-agnostic telematics devices installed in equipment ensure seamless data collection from anywhere, anytime. We are digitizing the farm and creating a digital ecosystem that not only connects farmers to their fields, but to key stakeholders and trusted advisors. So while yesterday's farmer had to make their best guess, today's farmer knows how to grow more, faster, and more sustainably than ever. Together, we can support the heroes that feed the world. Our commitment and dedication to innovation, science, and technology is transforming farming for the benefit of us all. Sustainable growing, a healthier planet, more food for the world. And this is only the beginning.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kinga Nolan, and I'm a product marketing intern here at Farmers Edge. And I'm joined by Matthew Keller, a territory sales agronomist for the Northern Plains area. Hi, Matthew. Would you like to give an introduction about yourself and talk a little bit about what we're doing today?
Yeah, no, nothing like a little technology air to help get everyone a little fired up. But hey, that is the world we live in, and technology out in the field also has issues, but that's where Farmers Edge comes in to help out, right? So, a little bit about myself. I'm in Bismarck, North Dakota, which if you put Manitoba and Saskatchewan together right at that line and go 3 hours south, you'll hit me in North Dakota. I've been with the company for about 5.5 years now, and it's been just a great ride. I started as a tech, so I have a pretty good background with monitors, machinery, basically the prescriptions that go into them, and then recently taken an agronomy role in the last 2.5 years, and I've really enjoyed the it depends answer that I get to give everyone. So it's been a fun ride.
That's fantastic. I know with you guys being in North Dakota, had lots of rain. It was a really wet spring. Same here up in Canada. So I'm just wondering, when we talk about getting into our topic today about heat management and canola heat blast, heat stress on plants, how did your season start off with, given that you had so much water on the fields?
Hey, actually, we just got another 30 hunters this morning here in Bismarck. So we've had more rain in the last 5 days, and we did all of last growing season. So about 4 inches. So it's been a little wet. But yeah, can you see my screen? I wanted to show some of the crop models. Perfect. All right. So yeah, like I said, our seeding dates, not unlike the prairie provinces, we're late, more or less a month late. We're usually getting into the field middle of April, late April, early May, and then finishing with soybeans late May. This year was totally different. We were planting spring wheat mid-May to late May. I know the latest spring wheat field I saw was like the 6th or 7th of June. And canola is intermixed with spring wheat, just depends where the drill is running that day. But yeah, seeding dates were extraordinarily late due to moisture in the field. It just never stopped raining, not to mention a 30-inch blizzard in April to throw things off for us. So that was fun. But before we get into heat blast and what that can do to canola, I just want to give some historical perspective on some of the earlier years when we had late planting. So the 2019 year, we had a really wet fall, and that delayed our 2020 planting quite a bit. And on the screen right now, you'll see two models, and those are offered by Farmer's Edge. We model 17 different crops, from potatoes to chickpeas to canola. In this instance, we're looking at two canola fields. Or actually, they're two different canola fields. One was planted on May 23rd of 2020, and this year a field got planted May 30th of 2022. And really, what I really wanted to show here is the span of growing. So if you look, we planted about a week later, and then our 60% seed color change is almost the same day, or is modeled out to be the same day. Now you might ask, why would that be if we planted later? Well, that's where that heat comes in. As we get later in the season, emergence happens, way faster, and the plant just tends to go through its growth stages at quite a high rate. That is where our yield decline usually happens. But as you'll see in later slides, if we hit this temperature thing right, we have the moisture still to have a phenomenal crop. I just wanted to highlight with these two graphs that we're going to have a shorter growing season this year, no doubt about it. If we stay hot, we should hopefully still mature before that frost that comes. So we'll see. But on to the next slide. This kind of highlights some work that NDSU did just about days to maturity. So they have five dates on the left, from April 28th to June 9th. And you can see the total days that plant was in the field on April 28th was 95 days. And on June 9th is 70. Now, again, that's just because that heat is just pushing that plant through its growth stages. And so we also have a shorter flowering window. So on that June 9th, we have 6 days less of flowering. Finally, you can kind of see what that does to yield. Carrington, Hettinger, and Minot, those are 3 NDSU stations in North Dakota. They all received just tremendously lower yield, and that's a percentage of yield. So on June 9th at Carrington, we had 50% of yield just for planting that late. Now, the bright spot in all that is Langdon. Langdon has a very stable microclimate there. It's cool and wet all the time. Never gets too hot, and the nighttime temperatures stay low. So the hope is that in the prairie provinces in North Dakota, we can have a cool, wet microclimate for the rest of the year and still attain high yields even with our late seeding date. And finally, I just wanted to give a little bit of perspective. This is a 2020 yield map, and the yield average was 57 or 56 bushel canola, which is just phenomenal yield for planting as late as we did that year. So the potential is definitely still there. It all just depends on how hot we get in the next month or two, because flowering just started a couple days ago here in North Dakota. So we're doing really good right now. Temperatures are good. Relative humidity is fine. Like I said, we just got some more moisture, so we're in for a pretty good shot here as long as we keep that temperature low. Speaking of temperature, I just wanted to get into a little bit of at what point does heat blast happen? Now, in the U.S., we're going to use Fahrenheit, right? So 86 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see I marked that little red line there. in the upper left hand of this graph. But what this graph is the 2020 growing season, the year that we got 60 bushel canola. You can see throughout that entire flowering window, June 29th to July 19th, we barely hit 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And we had moisture almost every other day. And now it wasn't downpours, but it was moisture. And that moisture will cool that plant off via transpiration. It'll make that vegetative zone even cooler. So we just had phenomenal growing opportunities during that 2020 year. I currently don't see 2022 being that different. I mean, we've been cool. We are forecasted for some 90s next week in Bismarck. But the heart of the canola belt on the Canadian North Dakota border doesn't look to get above 86 the next couple of weeks. So, like I said, with moisture's there, now we just need to worry about what this heat thing is going to do. That was a long-winded answer.
No, that's okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like you talk about this flowering window and how that's kind of when you get that heat blast going on, but what exactly is happening to the plant when it's under that heat stress, and why is that flowering stage so critical in terms of temperatures?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I should have highlighted it earlier. I mean, heat blast is just a period of time during the flowering window when we get above that 86 degrees threshold, which is probably 29, 30 degrees Celsius. If we have an extended amount of time in that, we start to have issues within the canola plant and the flowering. And what's happening is, so there's the male part of the flower, the anther, and then there's the female part of the flower, the stigma. Pollen files from the anther to the stigma. And what happens is in the canola plant, when everything is okay and everything's right, when that pollen hits the stigma, it sends hormonal message via proteins and lipids to say, hey, I have a piece of pollen on the stigma. Let's hydrate it. Let's create a pollen tube. Let's fertilize. And reproductive continues, right? In a poor year or in a really hot year with high heat, low relative humidity, so it's dry. And we can all remember last year that was exactly it, hot and dry. We had awful pollination in canola. We had a 800-pound canola crop, which is really bad. And part of that is due to when it gets that hot, the relationship between the stigma and the pollen, it just kind of dissipates. The communication isn't there. The stigma doesn't realize that pollen has hit it. And so it doesn't fertilize. And in my next slide here, you can start to see some of that issue. So on the very far left image, and this is from the Canola Council of Canada. They've done a lot of great research on heat blast. They have quite a few articles and some good YouTube videos if you want to check out their stuff as well. But I stole this picture from them. And on the left here, you can see basically aborted flowers or aborted pods in the racine. And that's where it just got too hot during that time, and those pods aborted. And you also start to see, even in the pods themselves, when you do have a severe heat blast, you'll start to see skips in seeds. So the seeds won't be all lined up in a row. You'll have skips. The beautiful thing about canola is it's a very plastic crop. I think, like Sky said last week, after hail, you still have a chance for a good crop in canola. And that's more so just because it can shoot out so many branches. So say we're only hot for a week here, or just a short period of time during the flowering period. We might lose a few flowers. We might lose some pollination. But, the canola crop can compensate, can regrow very quickly. It can overcompensate quickly, actually, and still have a good flowering window there. So, you can kind of see how we aborted pods on this left one up the stem, and then more pollinated as we go up. So I don't want to scare anyone with heat blast. It happens every summer. We get hot in North Dakota. I'm sure we'll hit a few hundreds here. But as long as that window doesn't stay very long, for 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have a good crop this year, at least, pending any hail, right? But
that's fantastic. And I think it's promising to see a better year in terms of moisture and those lower temperatures compared to a season like 2021. Mm-hmm. But on the topic of heat stress, you've discussed a lot about canola. Can other crops like, say, corn or cereals also get heat stress?
Yeah. Yep. So again, just talking a little bit about what the year that was 2022 and the madness and craziness of the spring, people are planting spring wheat really late. And so spring wheat being a cool season crop, I mean, no one wants to put spring wheat in when they know it's going to be hitting that heat in July and August during flowering, but hey, we had to do it. For spring wheat, though, the main window we don't want to hit high temperatures is that 4 to 6 leaf stage. And what's happening in that stage is the plant is starting to tiller and determining how many tillers it wants. And that yield is actually set within that stage. And if we have a really hot period during that stage, it's going to push through those tillers or those crop stages very quickly. Where in a perfect world, we would like to have that tillering stage be that 50 to 70 degree window. This year, that window was much hotter, so that those stages were gone through very quickly. I guess what we recommended at Farmer's Edge for a lot of our growers who are doing variable rate seed is let's bump that seeding population up 5 to 10%. The reason for that being is we know we're not going to have the tillers this year. We know it's going to be warmer. They're not going to set as well. So let's get more plants out there to hopefully increase the amount of heads we get. During the flowering period, spring wheat, if it does get really hot, the pollen just can become non-viable. So above 95 degrees during that pollen time, that can really greatly reduce pollination. Luckily, it's rarely that hot at the ground level, especially if your ground is covered, which it should be if it's flowering, right? And then, hopefully we have good relative humidity. Corn is a little bit different, not that far different than wheat, but the main issue with corn, again, is that heat. So above 95 degrees when the corn is trying to pollinate, we'll have pollen viability issues. We do have like a 2-week window with corn. So out of that tassel, we do have about 2 weeks for things to still work out. So we have a little bit of a good window there. As far as how to get by with it, with corn especially, is maybe choosing a shorter season hybrid, which a lot of people in North Dakota did this year, just due to the late planting dates. And try to find one, or try to manage your soil, I should say, with good practices, no tillage, minimum tillage. Just try to keep that moisture in the ground, because the number one thing that will save you in all heat stresses, and that's why I feel comfortable about this year, is moisture in the ground. Right now, our moisture profile is very good. So the plant is going to be much more flexible when we have a lot of moisture in the ground compared to last year where it was hot. Not only was it hot, it was very dry. So the plants were just frying themselves. But now we have really good soil moisture. We should be able to take on some pretty good heat. And honestly, heat would be welcome right now, because that corn's got to push through some stages for us.
Definitely. So you talked about soil moisture playing a role in heat stress, and you touched a little bit on different hybrids. But in terms of management options for our customers that have maybe seen heat stress, are there any options available to them at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, what everyone strives to do is plant early. Plant earlier and earlier is what universities are telling us to do, and and it does tend to work out well that way. I know there's issues with seed bed temperature, moisture issues in the spring, but the earlier we can get that crop in, hopefully we can avoid that late July, early August temperature. Because in North Dakota, that temperature between flowering in late June to early July, instead of late July, early August, is about a 4-degree average temperature. Now that's a big deal when we're talking about pollination. So we really want to try to avoid that issue. As far as varieties of canola, I mean, ask your seed dealer what they've seen as far as is one better with heat stress or not. I can't say I've done a lot of research to see what varieties were heat tolerant, but that would be something to check with your seed dealer. And other than that, we don't have a lot of options. It's just, I guess, praying for rain and hoping for the best as far as temperatures. So.
Yeah, fair enough. No, that's a tough one. So like at Farmer's Edge, are we doing anything to support growers in terms of heat stress or canola heat blast in terms of that flowering that you talked about?
Yeah, just to rewind a little bit, I mean, the way to avoid stress is to have a healthy plant. And the easiest way to have a healthy plant is to have good moisture, but that we can't control that. The second thing we can control is good fertility. So, us at Farmer's Edge having the right amount of fertility out in the soil, the right amount of nitrogen, right amount of phosphorus, right amount of potassium, right amount of sulfur for canola especially, that's going to create the healthiest plant we can make to strive to get through these heat areas. So that's the best thing we can do. As far as an insurance product across the industry, they're coming out with heat blast products, Farmer's Edge being one of them, and looking to create some newer offers in the near future. So I guess especially in Canada, if you wanted to reach out to your account manager just to see what in particular we offer here at Farmer's Edge, I think I would direct you that way. So
Fantastic. I think that's all the questions that I have today for you, Matthew, but do you have any closing words that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think the big thing I wanted to get across is with this late seeding date, we still have an opportunity for huge yield. I mean, the year this year is just so much better than last year. We've had great moisture. I guess there's a lot of growers in doom and gloom state here about a month ago, planting super late, but the year's been good. Continue to put your fungicides out. Moisture and relative humidity are way up. Contact your local agronomist for variable rate fungicides, especially in the prairies in North Dakota, because that's going to be a huge opportunity this year. And just keep pushing to harvest. I mean, I think, like I said, barring any weather issues, we can have a good crop this year. So that's all I have. I really appreciate you doing this. So
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, and it's been really informative. So next week, I think we're going to be talking about some insect problems. So join us same time next week, and we'll be excited to talk to you then. Thanks for your time, Matthew. Take care.
yeah.